Hey, welcome to another honest gear review. This time it is a deluxe reverb size and style 1x12 extension cabinet from GuitarCabinetsDirect.com. The owner of that Fender Concert 2 that I did all the work on before, and there's a link in the description below, wanted a matching 1x12 so he could have a 1x12 sound or a 2x12 sound for larger stages. And given the relatively odd width of the Concert 2 cabinet, none of my usual suspects from Mojo Tone quite fit. They're either way too wide or too narrow, and it would have been an odd-looking stack. But this one from GuitarCabinetsDirect.com was a good match. I've not used them before. I have no affiliation with them. I paid full price for this, but I'd like to let you know what I got. It is 3/4 inch solid pine on the cabinet itself. They say it's 1/4 inch finger joints. I can't confirm that. It's beneath the Deluxe. The Deluxe job is good. The grill cloth application is good. I'm not totally nuts about the quality of the chrome on the corners, but if those start to flake 5-10 years down the line, there are a lot of chrome corners out there. Maybe I'm seeing things, it just does not look like the best quality chrome. After a while you get an eye for such things. And each one's a little bit deformed. The camera doesn't really see it, but to the eye you can see little weird swoops in them, right where the screws go. So that's a minor niggle. But the grill cloth is good quality. The wood seems to be well done. They're using square bits to hold the baffle to the cabinet. I cannot verify that it's finger jointed. I cannot verify that it is pine, but it is very lightweight. I don't see any voids or anything. Everything seems to be as described. The only difference between this and the stock one they offer is I went for the slightly aged grill cloth or the blue black or black white. I can't remember. I had to choose one that wasn't their default, and I went for some heavy duty rubber feet because I like heavy duty rubber feet on cabinets. I do not like the chrome glides, but you know, all that together with the choice of grill cloth and the big rubber feet, this was $250 plus a reasonable shipping fee. So competitive with a lot of places, lower than some. Let's show you some of the details I found, and I'll show you how I installed the ET65 from Warehouse Guitar Speakers in here, and why I used solder instead of the quick connects, though the quick connects they provided were good and would have fit the speaker just fine for those who cannot solder. But I also show how to solder these properly, and a little thoughts on speaker wire gauge, etc., etc. So check all that, and then you'll get to hear it. Let's look at this thing from the rear. I've already taken the screws off this. The panel corners are a little trapezoidal. Makes it easier to assemble with these metal corners, but not exactly perfect. They have these domed screws, so the screws are fine, but they do not do a countersunk opening the way older Fenders do, and they don't have dress washers the way newer Fenders do. I'll go get a package of, is that a 6? That's a 6, number 6 dress washers. Gotta see this up a little bit for the owner. It's not just that it'll be prettier, though it will be, but because these are oval heads and they're not flush, they sit proud of the panel, which means that you could easily snag these on your clothing or things as you're walking with the cabinet. They're just sticking out a little bit. So some nice dress washers will smooth out those edges. Looks to be a Switchcraft jack. Let's confirm that. Okay, I confirmed that these 3 screws were tight as it came from the factory. Switchcraft jack. Let's see if I can get this to focus better. Pretty good solder joints. Came with these quick connects, but it looks like there's enough room that you could solder if you wanted. Not sure what's up with that little extra bit of Deluxe there, but no harm, no foul. Okay, we've got an ET65 in here, which is what's in the combo cabinet as well. And it's secured with caps nuts. I do those by hand, no power tools when installing speaker nuts. And I turn them with my hand, just with my index finger and thumb, until I can't turn them anymore with that. I get them all the same way. It's like tuning a snare, crossover like an X. And then once they're all as snug as I can get them with just my index finger and thumb, then I'll give about a half turn with my whole wrist, and that torques it really nicely. Now that's all going to depend on your strength, but that works for me. You just want it a little bit tighter than you can do with just your finger and thumb with a wrench. Not finger tight with just fingers, and not crank down, because if you over tighten them, the frame of the speaker will deform, and then you have all kinds of issues. So this is a switchcraft jack, and it came with this red and black wire. Seems to be 18 gauge, which is more than adequate for what we're doing here. Not just because it's not only 50 watt amp and it's going to be shared with the other amp, but crucially, there's a very short distance. And you look up current capacity tables for different wire gauges. There's a lot of hoopla online with guitar amps because people look at that stuff and don't read it correctly, and they realize that a lot of the recommendations are out there are for 1,000+ watt long runs, like you might find in a PA system for relatively low wattage stuff. 100 watts is nothing. And, you know, even in a Marshall, from the head down to a bottom cab in a 4x12, that's only 6-8 feet. That's nothing. Here we're going about a foot, so we could actually use 22 gauge and it'd be fine. But these are 18, so this is way overrated for the task. They gave us these quick connects. I'm not going to use them, but they are the correct size for a standard 12-inch speaker tab, which is a 1/4 of an inch. Let me get this to focus. So I could use them, but I'm not going to. I'm going to solder these. And I did this twist on them. It does nothing in terms of noise, but it gives each wire reinforces each other. So there's going to be less strain at the connection here and less strain at the jack. And give myself excess so there won't be any tension on the speaker, but not excessive excess. So I'm going to cut just about where my thumb is right now, and that'll give me plenty to reach when the thing's in place, with just enough slack that there won't be any tension on it, but it won't be flopping around. Okay, I've got the wire exposed and twisted neatly, but only the very ends of them have been tinned. And the reason is twofold. First of all, this wire has got a coating on it, so it's essentially each strand is already tinned. But when I do a bend in this, if I don't have this end tinned, all these wires at the end will come untwisted and display everywhere. So this keeps it neat. Let me position this, and I'll show you what it looks like before I solder. Hopefully you can see that the lens doesn't like shiny things. But each one is wrapped and hooked back, and I will snip off that excess before I solder. But when I do that bend, if I do not have the ends tinned ahead of time, that would have just been a frayed nightmare. Okay, again, it's hard to show shiny things, but that's a good solder joint on both of them. Secure, there's a mechanical wrap, and then nice amounts of solder. One of the negative didn't look shiny before. It was just the camera angle and the way the lens handles reflections. But this is good to go. They do have really nice big rubber feet. I heartily approve of that. I hate the little metal glider things that Fender used. And before I go play something through this, I will point out that I was able to pretty much countersink these screws. Might have gone a little bit deep on that one, so they're not sticking out of the cabinet so much. It's still, I think that should have been done a little bit better from the factory, because there are ways, if you countersink the hole and then recess the Deluxe into it, it doesn't bunch up. But in this case, it's not worth going and buying some dress washers just for that. I might have a little stash of the little Fender cup washers that would make this even neater. I'll check and see what I have, but that won't affect the sound or performance. So let's see how that stacks up. Okay, let's hear how this thing sounds. This is through a Dr. Z Maz 18 with reverb that I've just done a bunch of work on to get rid of a lot of noise. There's still a little remaining hum in the reverb circuit that's out of my control. It's due to where the tank physically is. And this is just kind of a brief thing. I will leave a link to the full Deluxe Reverb, not Deluxe Reverb, the full Dr. Z Maz 18 with reverb playing test at the bottom of this video. This video is going to upload first, and then I'm going to do the playing test of the Dr. Z. So the link will be added once the Dr. Z video goes live. But so just a Strat. A Maz 18 is not the clean machine that a Fender Deluxe Reverb or similar 60s Fender designs are. I've got the gain right about 9 o'clock. Let me turn it down a little bit more on the volume. And the amp wants to break up and has a lot of treble. Let me turn the cut down a little bit to compensate. See, you thought I messed up. I just was inventing a new song. Anyway, for the price, this is a really nice 1x12 option. The fit and finish seem really good. A couple little things I disagree with. Could be a little bit better, like the screws that weren't fully recessed, countersunk to the rear panels. But as I showed, that's pretty easy to do yourself. I'm not sure that the chrome corners are going to last as long as some others, but that's an inexpensive thing to change if necessary down the road. I would not hesitate to recommend them to people for the price with those two caveats. I've had cabinets from a lot of different makers, from the very cheap to the very expensive, and this is a fine cabinet if it sounds right for you. If what you've heard, granted this is not a Fender amp, seems interesting, I think you're on the right path. I tend to prefer Mojo Tone, just because there are different options that I like. But if you need something in this size, this is a great, great contender. And there's some other companies whose cabs I would never, ever recommend. Weber. But hope you find this interesting. So it's nice when I can do an honest gear review and have nice things to say.